Hello everybody, John here, and today onto the garage we've got more secrets of the XK8, this time related to the coolant header tank. I have quite a lot of questions pop up that are related to the cooling system and particularly this header tank, and generally related to losing water, low water level when there is no low level in there, it's actually the correct level. And so let's just have a little look at this item and its many secrets. The first thing to get out of the way is this is not the atmospheric tank. This is not the overflow tank. All things that we'd be familiar with, particularly in older British cars. This is a header tank. It's the highest point in the system and is therefore where you top up the water level. And for that reason, a few people get a little confused. If this was an expansion tank or an atmospheric tank, then there would normally be some sort of level marked on the side, which is why you often get a semi-transparent or translucent tank, whereas this is black, to see the level. And that level needs to be below the neck to give some space for the fluid to expand and contract and air pressure to do its thing. However, in this, there's no need for any of that. And so the correct level for this tank is literally just below the inner lower rim. So if I take a screwdriver, just so that it's easier for you to see, the water level is there. That's probably easier if I do it just there for you. And you've got the top of the tank, then there's a ledge that pops out, and then there's a point where that ledge disappears underneath to go to the full volume of the tank. That's where your water level should be. Next thing is, lots of people think that this is a dumb cap, i.e. a cap with a rubber seal and it seals it off, and therefore as long as it's not leaking water out of the cap, it cannot fail or be broken in any way. Actually, this is quite a nice, clever cap, and it does contain a mechanism. You can see the brassy area at the top there. And this is a valve, and we can see we've got a seal here, and we've got another seal higher up. And what this is for is to work in conjunction with the actual atmospheric tank. This line here goes to the atmospheric tank, and that is just think of it as an open container. And this pipe goes into that open container and is submerged in the water, and it's located in the right hand wheel arch. It's behind the front wheel, and you have to take the wheel arch liner out to see it. What happens is when the car is warm, it is able to push water out, up through this valving system over the top of this seal, and then that water can escape down this line and go to the atmospheric tank, where it's collected just like a bucket. It's literally pumped into that bucket. Now, because the water is over the top of the pipe that let it in that bucket, when the car cools back down and the water in here and the rest of the engine contracts, it creates a bit of a vacuum. It's sucking and it's sucking through this pipe here, and the valve in here will open and allow it to suck, using this as a straw, liquid back from the atmospheric tank in the wheel arch. So when the car is cooled back down, it should have pulled the water level back up to the base of the neck, even though it spat some out when it got warmer. So when you open this on a cold engine and you see a water level that is up to the base of the neck, that's a good thing. If it's lower than the base of the neck, then, you know, a millimetre or two is not going to be a big issue. And next cycle of the engine, it may suck it back and get right to the bottom of that lip. But if it's significantly lower, let's say a centimetre lower than that rim, it may be that your atmospheric tank, which you should consider as a bucket, think of it as literally an open-topped bucket. Maybe there's a hole in your bucket and the water that was pushed out, there was insufficient left in it when the engine cooled to suck back. That's one possibility. Another is that this pipe is split or perished or got a hole in it and the engine is sucking, but it can't get enough suction to pull the liquid back. Another is that the valve in here has gone wrong, or occasionally you rebuild an engine, you have a service that includes the tank in the wheel arch being disturbed or the pipework taken off it and it's empty. And sometimes what happens is you start the engine up with the water level correct, you run it, it gets warm, it pushes liquid into that tank, but when it comes to time to draw it back, there wasn't enough in there in the first place to actually suck all that back. It needs a certain level in there to cover the bottom of the pipe. So sometimes you have to top this back up and go again, and the system gets itself back into balance. Sometimes when this valve goes, you'll find a puddle just behind your front right wheel, and that is because this is constantly pushing water out and the seals have been compromised and it's pushing out way too much. And because you should think of it as an open top bucket, it isn't, it just has a hole. It's going to pump out onto the floor and it's behind the front wheel, not here. Occasionally the seals will fail on the cap at the top, and that may cause you to get a leak around this area, and a replacement cap is all that you probably need. Different cars have different tanks for different years and different models. The XK8 tank is different because of the supercharger on the top and, well, more the intercoolers from the supercharger. Some of the cars, later cars, have a simplified water system, and one of these pipes will be blocked off. It'll literally have the stub, but the moulding won't have a hole in the end. That is correct, but on an earlier car, you're going to have two pipes, and that's because the early cars have got this very sophisticated system with a small bore water system that's used until the car warms up, and it switches to a different system when the car is running warm. This makes the car warm up very quickly and gets the heater inside working very quickly. It's a little over the top, and so is dropped from some later cars. If you get a situation where you've got a low fluid level indicated on your dashboard, but the fluid level is actually okay when you check in here, that will be a failure of the sensor. And if you remove the one screw that's on here, pull up at the front and then slide the whole unit that way, it comes loose. Let's give you a better view of that. You can see there's just two big plastic pegs down there in rubber grommets. So when you pull it forward, you detach those. Now, I'm not going to drop all the coolant out my system for you guys. I love you all, but not that much. So having just loosened the tank off, I'll just move it a little bit, and we're looking from the front of the car towards the back. You can see the main pipe, the one with the white stripe there, where the water enters the system of your engine. So that's where this is topping up the engine from. And closer to me, at the back there, you've got an electrical connector. And that connector is pushed on from the opposite side. So near the windscreen, you squeeze two clips and pull to disconnect it. And that is where the level detection is done in this tank. It's a magnetic sensor that is read by the wiring that goes into here, and it can fail. So sometimes you've got to replace the tank in order to get yourself a fresh new sensor in there. Sometimes the connector is a little bit dicky, but I'll show you a good secret that gets rid of the problem, I guess 50% of the time. So I'm just going to put my tank back in place. I'm not straining anything. There we go. Back into his little locators. I'll pop the single screw back that holds it. It's a Torx T30 for anybody who's interested. And one good trick, if your sensor is playing up, is pop the cap. Get yourself a length of hose, push it down, and you'll want to aim mainly sort of back towards this corner, down near the base, and blow into the pipe and bubble the fluid around. And it can just be an accumulation of silt and rubbish that's got the system down there to stick. And if you can agitate the water in there, then the whole thing comes back to life. Equally, taking this all off and giving it a really good flush, clean out with fresh water, airline, some pressure, will get most of them to come back to life. These tanks are known to split and spring leaks, and it tends to be around this seam here. The coolant we use in here, I'm not going to tell you guys what coolant to stick in because it does change year to year, but my car is using one called 08T, which is sort of pinky orange coloured coolant. And almost all the coolants that you could have used in a Jag, if you're using the right stuff, will have a UV trace in them. Meaning if you've got access to a black light or UV lamp, then shining that around, you'll be able to see the sort of white ghostly glow of coolant, and it will show up where any leaks are or previous leaks have been. The negative is if the car has had a bit of a catastrophic of water at some stage and nobody's ever cleaned the parts, you know, you're looking at very old evidence, but it can be useful. If you're doing some really significant work on the car and you've drained down the system completely, there is another filler point, which can be very useful in terms of getting fluid into the engine quickly and also getting the initial air out by squeezing the hoses, etc. And if you unscrew this stainless cap, there is a filler neck there. And this is the coolant tower filler point. And you just put an Allen key in there, turn it, undo it, and you can pour water straight into the engine through there, or vent it whilst you're doing some initial turnovers. But it's not intended to be the driver's general maintenance access point, hence not removable by hand, and has this stainless cover on it. There we go. And yet again, unfortunate piece of cost down on so many of the cars that are not very early cars. You won't find this because it's been removed and lost, or again, it was never fitted from new. It's not necessary, it's a cosmetic part. And the last little feature that amuses me rather than is of any importance to anybody else is you'll note the cutout on the corner of the tank. And that is for the strut braces on a convertible car. So if you're looking at your car at that depression, wondering why on earth it's there, and you've not got a convertible, it's because the convertibles have additional strut braces, cross braces in various places, and that's a clearance item. Why they ever thought that the tank would move far enough to collide with that, I do not know. And maybe it suggests that earlier cars, they were set slightly further back, or that this strut brace may be moved in terms of angular location in the initial design of the car. But yeah, it just amuses me. That's strange moulded depression for something which probably got added later in the design once they've discovered that they needed it. So you can kind of see a little bit of the engineering going on the hoof. Classic Jag stuff. If you're enjoying our channel, then don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell icon so you get notifications of new videos. And please give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, and you can share the videos. And below the video is always the area where you can comment and get involved with the chat.